Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today in War Thunder it is time to talk about Devblog, which actually covers something which is more than vehicles. This time we're having a look at some new rockets which are coming to the game for the British. Now the British for a very long time have pretty much just had RP3s when it comes to their rocket loadouts. There are some differences, but normally it comes in the form of premium vehicles, and this time when we have a look at some new rockets for the British, it looks like they're going to be coming to a variety of machines that are going to be available for the British, which is really nice, you know, as a person who is a fan of CAS, as a person who thinks that the idea of combined arms in War Thunder is an incredibly strong concept and one of the main reasons why War Thunder strives. It's nice to see that we are getting additions to the game which are, you know, which are strengthening that idea instead of weakening it. Now, it obviously is going to depend on where these rockets find themselves, especially when it comes to the largest one, the Red Angel, but at least in the Devblog it says new cool stuff for British pilots, 3 new extremely powerful rockets to mount on British aircraft. These rockets will be available for aircraft such as the Hawker Sea Fury, the Mosquito FB Mark 6, the Avenger Mark 3, the Firebrand, and the Wyvern. So at least there are more than, you know, 1 or 2 aircraft which are going to get access to these. And understand, yes, I do think it's annoying in a way, because, you know, as a person who's spaded all of those tech tree vehicles talked about, yes, it's going to be kind of annoying going back and respading them in order to get these rockets, but I think overall it's worth it. And also at the end of the day, you get to play some of the older vehicles that maybe you haven't played in a while. Sometimes when stuff gets added to the game, such as specific rockets or such as specific bomb loadouts, I end up playing machines that I haven't played in 3 to 4 to 5 years, and it's kind of refreshing to go back to them after spading them, because generally when I've spaded a vehicle, I'm out of it, you know, and on to the next one. So let's talk about these 3 different sets of rockets. Here is the first one, and it's pretty simple. It's called the Triplex RP, and it pretty much says what it is on the tin. So you know how you have the British RP3 rockets. You know, the RP3 is one of the standard ones that you get in the British tech tree and also used by the British Armed Forces. It's one of those which is very much based around its propellant, and then, you know, you can kind of change the nose of it depending if you want an AP rocket, a HE rocket, even a heat variant of the RP3. Well, this one is a fancy design of an RP3, and what it is it's 3 of them stuck together. So basically what you have is you have 3 RP3 rocket engines, and it has a single warhead which is put on top of it. And the hit of such a rocket is approximately equivalent to the hit of 3 RP3s at once. So therefore this is going to have a hell of a lot of a bigger boom, instead of just a single RP3 hitting something. It's probably going to have a bit more pen, it's probably going to have a bit more explosive, and that means that good luck to all of those vehicles that get hull broken, because now you have something more on the block which is going to give you a bit of a tough time. It's going to give you a hell of a hit onto it, which will be very fun. Now obviously a few years ago rockets were tuned differently. One of the things that I definitely want to bring up is a lot of people wane for the days back, you know, when CAS was incredibly superior compared to a lot of other vehicles. One of the key things was that back in the day, if you just hit a vehicle with a HVAR, it would explode in ground realistic, and this meant if you had like a Sabre or if you had something such as an AD4, you would be able to destroy a whole team in a matter of maybe a minute or 2. And I'm very glad that we've got to a stage in War Thunder where rockets have become way more realistic, and also now that there is a reason to take larger rockets, because back then there was no reason to take anything which was above a HVAR or above an RP3. Now that we have Tiny Tims in the game, now that we have the larger rockets that we see at higher tiers for the Soviets, and also even stuff like Nords and things like that. Obviously they're more guided missiles, but still they're incredibly powerful in the game. Now that we have so many variants of different weaponry, it's kind of nice to see that there is a reason to take them, instead of the fact that you could just go with the smallest ones, and because of how the damage model reacted, it was, you know, the best thing to do. Now there is a reason for these to exist, where before there definitely wouldn't have been, and that means that we're going to have more exploration into some of these larger vehicles. You can also see the little wings on the end of this, which is kind of nice, you know, hopefully for a little bit of extra guidance. And then we get even bigger. So what is this monstrosity? Well, this is an Uncle Tom, and an Uncle Tom is pretty much not as big as you can get, but it's getting there. The Uncle Tom was an experimental anti-ship rocket. It was continuing on the idea of just increasing the amount of oomph that is in the rocket. The normal weight of this rocket is 1,000 pounds. So just to give you an idea of how big this thing was, but even in reality, it was even slightly more. Most Uncle Toms that were built had around about 6 RP3 engines in them, and they are not just combined with clamps, but also enclosed in a cylindrical metal chassis, and each engine has an external cone-shaped nozzle, and the warhead of the Uncle Tom is an armor-piercing, high-explosive one, which was designed to penetrate the armored belt of a ship, such as a destroyer or a cruiser. So this is going to tear stuff apart when it's able to hit it. This is going to be one of those rockets which in ground forces is going to tear through machines once they hit it, and once, you know, it's able to just annihilate pretty much anything. And also, since one of the things that we see in naval a lot is the meta of naval is pretty much just bombs. And the reason for this is because even if you have like a huge cruiser, like even if you have one of the big premium ones like the Belfast or even the Helena, stuff such as bombs hull break the machines. So maybe with the addition of these rockets, maybe we'll see a different tuning of how bombs are going to work, and therefore there will be a reason to use these rockets. Because at the end of the day, when it comes to these British rockets, yes, the XXXRP was much more designed to kill tanks, but the Uncle Tom and also the next rocket we're going to get into were anti-ship rockets. And you know how we talked about, you know, a few minutes ago, the idea that the game was very... There was no reason not to use stuff like H-files and RP3s back in the day. Well, if we have a look at these rockets now, the way I see it in their anti-ship role, which is what they're designed for, there's no real reason to use them because of the fact that there is so many better options right now because of how bombs are modeled in the game. This is why I've been advocating a long time for a remodel of how bombs work in War Thunder, you know, taking more into account armor penetration and also physical models when it comes to tanks and when it comes to ships. And we have seen a general progression of this over time, but I still think it needs to go a little bit further in order for stuff like this, in order for stuff like Tiny Tims to make a lot more sense to use. The last rocket that is on the additions to updates 1.99 is this massive chonker. Now, what is this? This is the Red Angel. Now, what the Red Angel is, it's another one of those 1,000-pound rockets. It was an experimental set, and obviously it still used the RP3 engine, so all 3 of these rockets did use RP3 engines, just different amounts of them. It also had folding wings that deployed after launch, and the warhead is very similar to the Uncle Tom rocket, where the projectile was supposed to destroy heavily armored naval targets. Mainly, it was designed in reaction to the Sverdlov class cruisers for the Soviets, and it would take around 6 hits from these rockets in order to be able to take them out. And Red Angels were tested on the Wyvern turboprop fighter, but I hope in game, these aren't just the things that the Red Angel isn't only going to be on the Wyvern, or if it is going to be only on the Wyvern for now, hopefully there is some expansion where we get another vehicle which will be able to use them, but the Wyvern at least would be able to have one of them under each wing mount, so therefore it will be able to carry 2 at a time. And the thing is, if I compare it to bombs right now, the bombs are much more effective than the majority of rockets in the game. Maybe these new rockets will bring a different, way of playing the game. Maybe these ones will hull break cruisers, which will be kind of crazy. But the main thing to understand is when it comes to these rockets, I still think stuff like the Uncle Tom and the Red Angel, it would be better, at least for now, to use bombs over them. But we'll have to see when it comes to the game, generally what happened. But the Red Angel, unfortunately, was an unsuccessful experimental design. The main reason for this is because of the short range that they had to be fired from. So therefore, with the increase of, AA armaments on ships, and also the fact that, you could have different methods of being able to kill ships from torpedoes, bombs, in the effect, especially post-war, generally it was seen that, these guided rockets were, just unguided rockets were seen as inferior. Also at the time, missiles were turning up, so therefore the project was closed around the Red Angel, and it never even sunk a single ship. But at least in War Thunder, as usual with a lot of experimental projects and prototypes, you can test them on the battlefield where normally you wouldn't be able to. So this to me is actually the most fascinating devblog so far. I really liked the HS TVL. I thought that was a really cool machine. Also, the Char D2 was really nice to see, and overall, the Japanese Navy I'm massively looking forward to. But when we have a mechanic which is going to be involved with many different vehicles at once and should shape differently how, certain vehicles play, that to me is much more interesting than, just one singular vehicle, because it has much more of a higher effect on the game. So I'm looking forward to see how these rockets work. Hopefully there is a place for them in the game instead of them just being replaced by bombs, which, unfortunately is kind of how a lot of RP3s work right now. But yeah, as I said, hopefully in 1.99 there will be a place for them. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank Eugens Terry, Daniel Stanton, Blackie, Elove Goat, Jay Wilt, Martinez, B. Young, Chris Giltnane, Trigger Hippie, Ambrosius McClellan, and also Samuel Slick for supporting the channel.